Hi, everyone. We're the Fan Brothers. I'm Eric.
My name's Terry.
And I'm Devin.
So we made a little presentation for you today about how we make books, how we work together, and a little bit about our process. So you'll find out how we turn this
into this.
So stay tuned for that. We hope you enjoy the presentation, and thank you all so much for tuning in.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks so much, everyone. We really hope you enjoy the presentation.
Hi, everyone. My name's Eric Fan. I'm an author-illustrator of picture books and with my brother, and these are some of the books we've worked on. The Night Gardener was our first book, and that was followed by Ocean Meets Sky, and then we illustrated some books for other authors. There was The Darkest Dark by Chris Hadfield, The Antlered Ship by Dashka Slater, and The Scarecrow by Beth Ferry. And our latest book is called The Barnabus Project, and it's actually the first book that Terry and I have worked on with our other brother, Devin. So we're very excited about that. It's the first book we've done with all three of us. And today I want to talk a little bit about how we make picture books, what inspires us, how we work together. And I apologize, my voice is a little hoarse because I've been sick, but hopefully it'll hold out through this. So I mentioned in my draw-along video, this is a book that Terry and I made when we were kids. We were about 4 or 5 years old. It was called Many Years Ago, and it was about dinosaurs. And our mom helped us write out the text and put the book together, which by some miracle we still have after all these years. And I guess I wanted to show you this book just to inspire you that you're never too young to make your own book. If you have an idea for a book or you like to draw, this is how Terry and I got our start making books together, and we're still making books today. So it tells the story of the dinosaurs and how the dinosaurs died off. And the last spread of the book is the dinosaurs as we see them today in the museum. And so that's kind of another lesson when you're thinking of your story. It's always good to keep in mind what the beginning, middle, and end of the story of every story sort of has 3 parts, a beginning, middle, and end. So Terry and I and Devin, we all went to OCAD University in Toronto. That's the Ontario College of Art and Design. And before Terry and I got into picture books, we were doing illustration. And here's just some illustration we had done before we got into picture books, which is actually how our agent found us. She saw our work online and approached us about making a picture book. And so she asked us if we had any ideas for picture books. And so we actually went back and looked at illustrations we had done together before. This was one of them called Autumn Chameleons, and you can kind of see the connection between this drawing and The Night Gardener. We had started drawing trees shaped like animals, and this was actually a t-shirt design Terry and I did called The Night Gardener, and that ended up being the inspiration for the book. And sometimes you do an illustration and there seems to be a story behind it, and sometimes a drawing can ask questions. Like for this one, it was, who is the night gardener? Why is he working at night? And why is he shaping a tree into an owl? And as you go through the process of answering all those questions, your story develops. And that's sort of how we ended up with the Night Gardener. And so for our next book, we looked at illustrations we had done before too. This is a drawing that Terry did years ago called Ocean Meets Sky. And something about the image of the whale floating in the clouds, we thought there might be a story there. And that actually ended up being our second book, Ocean Meets Sky. And now this is a drawing that Devin did. He did it 25 or 30 years ago, so a long time ago. It was a little character he drew called Barnabus, who was half mouse, half elephant, and he had been made in a secret lab. And just like with our other books, we thought there was a story behind this image, but for many years, that idea hibernated until we finally made a book out of it. And actually, I lost this drawing, and very recently I went to try to find it, and I looked through my entire apartment and spent days looking for it, and then I finally found it when I was cleaning out my storage locker, and this little drawing was at the bottom of a stock pot of all places. But that drawing ended up being our book, The Barnabus Project. So another place inspiration comes from is the places you visit, and even your own neighborhood or your own backyard. It could be inspired by a place. And this is our ancestral home in Taiwan, where my dad lives now. He was born there and then retired back, but we've visited him many times. And you can see that the property has these beautiful trees. And I think that place was one of the things that inspired The Night Gardener. And our dad himself, he became the inspiration for the Night Gardener character. He's always loved trees and bonsai, and so he's kind of the original Night Gardener. And my nephew Ronan was the inspiration for the character of William in The Night Gardener. And this is a picture of my dad and my other nephew, Valentine, and they were sort of the inspiration for the two characters in Ocean Meets Sky, along with our grandfather. And that's a picture of my grandfather, and then a drawing that Terry and I did of the character in The Night Gardener on the right there. So every book starts with sketches before you start working on the final book. We do a lot of sketches. Here are some early sketches for The Night Gardener. And when you're doing sketches, you're trying to find your way into the story, into the characters. You're looking for mood. At this point, sometimes the story can even change a little bit. You can see the drawings on the left there. Originally, there were two characters, a brother and a sister, in The Night Gardener, and then we eventually just made it one character. And here's some mood sketches of Grimlock Lane. And here's an early concept sketch of from The Antlered Ship, showing the fox characters and Marco. And this is an example of how a book can change from the sketch phase to the final book. We had originally made the foxes wearing clothes, and they're more anthropomorphic. And our agent ended up suggesting that we make them just more naturalistic animals. So in the final book, Marco is more like a real fox, and this is a spread from The Antlered Ship. And so here's some sketchbooks for when we were working on developing the Barnabus project. On the left, there's some drawings from Devin's sketchbook of Barnabas, and then there's some little sketches of his friends, the failed projects in the book. And so every book starts this way with sketches. And you can see how the book develops. This is a concept drawing from Ocean Meets Sky, and that's another example of how things can change. We originally had Finn's boat as a bathtub, and then our art director suggested maybe making his boat something he builds out of little scrap and junk that he finds. So here's some sketches we did, and we eventually sort of honed in on the final design for the boat as it appears in the book. And here's just some sketches of the antlered ship, and some final art from the book. And the same thing applies for when we're doing the cover art. There's a rough sketch on the left, and the final cover on the right. But we did a lot of sketches, just trying to find the right composition, the right image for the book. And once you have a sketch that's approved, then you work on the final. And so after you've done your sketches, you do what's called a rough dummy of the book. And that's the whole book, the story, as it's going to be laid out on the pages. And the stories, even at this point, the story was a little bit different than it ended up being in the final book, but you can see that a lot of it was carried through to the final book. And so this is an early dummy sketch for the park scene, and then that's the final art as it appears in the book. And this was from the dummy of Ocean Meets Sky, the Library Islands, and that's the final. So you can still see that even when you have the dummy, that a lot can change when you go to the final art. And here's some sketches from the Barnabus project. You can see the dummy sketches on the top, and then the final art is on the bottom. So final art, we tend to work on in pencil, although we've been moving more towards drawing digitally as well. But for a lot of our books, we still draw in pencil on paper, and then we scan those drawings and we color them in Photoshop digitally. And here's Terry and I working. Sometimes we work on the same drawing together. And with the Barnabus project, it's the three of us. But more often, we are drawing separate drawings and then combining them in Photoshop. So we will draw individual elements, and then the final image is a composite of those different drawings, which I'll show you a little bit later, how that sort of works. And here's some final art from the Barnabus project. So here's the original pencil drawing of the cat tree from the Night Gardener. And that's scanned, and this is what it looks like when it's colored in Photoshop. So here's a dummy sketch, again from the Night Gardener, of the dragon tree. And these are all the little different elements that Terry and I will draw separately. And the tree is drawn separately. So that's the pencil. And when it's colored in Photoshop, and then layer by layer, we will add in the other elements. And we keep all those elements on their own layer in case we want to take something out or move a character somewhere. And here's another example from the Darkest Dark, and you can see that everything is on its own layer. And then the final coloring. And for the cover, it's the same. This is the cover of Ocean Meets Sky, and all the little elements are drawn separately and then put together in Photoshop. Until we get the final cover image. And like I said, if we need to move something, you can always move an element. And that sort of makes it handy if you need to move something. And so I'll just give one more example of how we build up an illustration in Photoshop, because that's really where a lot of our, about 50-50 between doing the drawing and doing the final art in Photoshop. So these are all drawn elements that are built up layer by layer. Until we get the final image. So I hope you enjoyed that, seeing our process a bit. This is really the most enjoyable part for us, is when the book is published and just seeing kids all around the world enjoying our book. So we hope you seek out our books. They're available in bookstores everywhere. And thank you all for listening today. And I thought I would leave you just with this is a little video of my dad on his property in Taiwan. So a little glimpse of the real night gardener. And so thank you all. Thanks very much.